Hey there, fiddle fans. Good to be back with you this week. Have a really cool tune picked out for you. It is called Jonesboro. Now, there's almost an identical tune called A Rose for Polly. That was by Tommy Hunter. He was a great fiddler, and I'll try to share some links for that. We'll go through this tune. It's actually a little bit simpler than the other tunes that we played earlier. This is another G tune, but it's kind of a G modal tune. And it's one of my favorites. But before we get started, if I can find my pick, I just had it. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the mandolin, only really just because I'm using it to illustrate those chords I was talking about. So when you're playing the mandolin, the chords these would be your 2-finger chords, because they're not the full chords, they're not the, so that's like a full G, right? But a lot of people kind of cheat. They bring your thumb over, mute that, and just do it like that. So anyways, the reason I want to bring this out is because I think it's a little clearer with some of those chords I was talking about. In the key of G, the 2-finger double stops, as they're called, that are really important to know. Not just because they sound cool, but because they'll actually, sometimes if you know them, it makes it actually, once you're used to playing them, then you can do some of that more complicated bowing going between the strings. It actually makes it simpler to do that, and less complicated, less shifting on your fingers. You're just picking up, a finger here and there. So the two that I really was wanting to impress on you, this is the one, I might call it like a high G. I brought this instrument so you could see what I'm talking about. So these frets, or it's kind of like where the lines would be if you drew them on your fretboard. So, because this is tuned just like a fiddle. So that's one of them. I'll call that the kind of high G chord. And then the other one is this. See if you can see that. That's maybe the most important one. And you can put them together, do that, and that basically makes the beginnings of that G chord. Alright, so there's that. And here is a little bit of that Jonesboro. Now this comes from a fiddler named Red Wilson. Like I said, it's sort of claimed as an original tune, but it sounds a lot like an old Western North Carolina fiddle tune, so I don't know whether, I wouldn't accuse Red of borrowing from tradition and pretending that he wrote it. I don't know, he might have just pulled it out of the mist of his memory, something he'd heard when he was young, and kind of filled in the gaps he didn't remember. But what other way he came about Jonesboro, it's a great tune, and he named it after Jonesboro, Tennessee, where his band used to go play often. So I'll play a little bit of it. Starts on a G. Alright, messed up a little bit in the middle, but you can skip over that part. But anyways, so this is a great old kind of lonesome fiddle tune. Great tune for when you're sitting on the porch and playing by yourself. Which, yay, quarantunes. So anyways, starts on the G string and has a little that note right there. Right? Alright, so these are the fingers that you're using. No first finger on these strings. And here we have that roll into that unison note. Unison D. And we're going to go up, and again, these two fingers. So. That's my cat, or Mac. If we do that without the, okay. If we do that without the double stops, usually that trips me up a little bit, but I'll try it. I know it's helpful to break it down into the melody notes like that, but it is really important. The sooner that you can hear and use drones as you go along and play, the better. Always breaking it down just into the notes, I feel like might, as you get farther and farther along the fiddling, might kind of be an obstacle to when you're trying to break down a fiddle tune or hear it. I think it's good to start hearing not just the melody notes, but hearing what that melody note sounds like in the context of the drones. And the reason I think that's helpful is just get used to that drone sound, so when you go to listen to, let's say you go to Slippery Hill, one of those websites, you don't need to have it broken down for you much, because you already hear, you're like, oh yeah, that's what it sounds like when you're doing that, you know. So that's that A part to that. So what we're going to start, we're going to do a little G grab, I guess, where you just, a little downward pressure real quick. So again, let's use two fingers, but this time we're going to use this one. So we got a little slide in. and then a hammer off, I guess you'd call it, if it were we're playing a banjo or guitar. See that? All right. But with the bow. See that little slide up, slide back. So. And here comes the pinky. You're gonna slide up to that note until you get it. And then we're gonna go to this finger. And here comes that pinky again. Sorry. Play it all together, slow. Oh, sorry.